Yo and hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Hobby Think Tank, where the greatest minds in the hobby, or at least me and John, get together and try to tackle some of the topics du jour within the world of the hobby. Hello, John. Happy New Year.
Hello, Happy New Year. I don't think you and I have a brain cell to rub between the two of us, as they would say back in the
Well,
day.
a few current matters, and we'll get to the topic of the day. But I want to thank you personally for my Tom Landry comic book that you sent me.
Yeah,
Phenomenal.
it, yeah, it's the Cowboys. Plus, it was the golden year of 1973, which um, hold that thing back up again. You notice how many trophies are on the front there?
One.
Just one, right? Pretty impressive, huh?
Just
I was going
one.
to get you a VCR so you can watch the old Cowboys Super Bowls, but I couldn't afford the postage. So
Laser
maybe
disc. They're on
maybe
laser disc.
laser disc. What's
Uh,
up?
Well, I also wanted to ask if you got, I don't know, I'm sure you're all over it, but I got an email from Topps just a few minutes ago announcing that, you know, Bowman Draft Sapphire is available. So I'm sure you went and just bought cases of that.
Did you say Bowman crap sapphire, or
Yeah.
did my ears need to be cleaned?
I didn't. I should have,
You should have.
properly acknowledged that product for what it is, which is crap.
Yeah. When's enough enough? How many Bowman releases are there, and do we need more? And obviously, your dogs are excited about it. They couldn't be happier.
They want some of that.
Uh,
They love crap.
yeah, I'm sure they want to smell some of that Bowman and lift a leg, I guess, right
Yeah.
on top. Yeah, I guess the hobbies pass us by, Michael Moynihan.
We'll take it. I actually I mentioned in my hobby goals video that I just did that I don't even care really what Fanatics does. Honestly, it's so irrelevant to the way I hobby that
Yeah.
whatever they want to do, fine.
Well,
So
the next T-shirt I will make will say, "Every card I want has already been made, so it doesn't matter." So,
it's a
hey,
good mantra.
good luck, fanatics. I wish you well.
Wish you well. But that is not what we're going to talk about today, because what we want to think tank today is there's a lot of talk right now. We're in the middle of, in baseball, for certainly the Hall of Fame season, right? We're a couple of weeks away from them announcing who will be the inductees for the class of 2024. You've got a ballot, full of, I would say, semi-worthy people. And we're not going to debate who should be in and who shouldn't. That's for another time, and plenty of people do videos about that. And you can make arguments for most of the players on there, yes and no. What we want to talk about today, John, what I'd love to get your opinion on is, it doesn't even matter anymore. Does it move the needle in the hobby? That's the question that we will discuss. What do you think?
I say no, and I think we have enough empirical data to back that up, um, because there's so many boring Hall of Famers that don't meet it, that don't move the needle. Is Fred McGriff's car, are they worth any more? Maybe they are, but they probably aren't worth that much more than they were prior to. The talk of Fred McGriff and the hype of Fred McGriff not being in more valuable than his actual election. That's the most recent example, I would think, and don't think it moves the needle in the hobby. What do you think?
So I tend to agree with you. I think if a player was hobby relevant before, which Fred McGriff was not hobby relevant prior to his induction, and therefore he's only slightly more hobby relevant today.
Mm-hmm.
And are there a few cards of his that I want to get? Yes. Am I, clamoring to do that? Am I overpaying to get those cards added to my collection? No, because there's two things happening that I think is hurting the hobby excitement around the Hall of Fame. And I think there's a difference between baseball excitement and hobby excitement. Those are two different things. And I think the mediocrity of the player's career certainly plays into both. But if you think about a player like Derek Jeter, for example, he was beloved by many, hated by me, and yet I buy his cards and I bought his cards, and he was already hobby relevant
Right.
prior to Hall of Fame induction. The next guy I'm thinking of, guy Ichiro, is hobby relevant now. He will be even again. It'll move the needle a little for him getting into the Hall of Fame, but it's not like anybody will be surprised when Ichiro gets 99 point whatever % of the vote he's going to get. Albert Pujols will be another. He's a generational talent. He's a legendary player, already hobby relevant. So that's, to me, I don't know if I'm making any sense at all, but
Yeah, you are. But and I guess what I was trying to say, and McGriff is kind of an older example of that. But you talk about Ichiro and Pujols, the buildup to their actual election will see a bigger spike than their actual election, I think, because there will be more hype to that, and that's when you'll see prices in theory go up, I think, a little higher. And but we already know they're great players. It won't be a surprise when they get elected. The crowning won't suddenly make their values go up any higher. Now, something you kind of hidden in there in your monologue was the fact that you need to get certain cards of certain players. It's kind of and the PSA set registry is kind of a built-in artificial kind of, I guess not artificial, but kind of a contrived way of increasing some of the values of some of those cards, right? I mean, it's not organic. It's not organic. It's been, and I don't mean contrived in a bad way, but a manufactured way of increasing the prices of some players. Yeah.
I can't believe you didn't like my monologue, first of all. But
no, I did, but I thought, cynical me says maybe he's being deceptive. He kind of went right over that. He needs a couple cards, but he won't tell us why. Why does he need cards?
Well, it's also the era, right? So there's kind of this bifurcation in the hobby. You've got Jim Cott, Tony Oliva, guys like that when they got in, their cards were vintage cards, already. And so.
And how many Oliva and Cott rookies were there? One each,
ton.
right? Well, no, there's only one each, right?
Well, there's only one of each of those, but I'm also saying those have now become, for me, finding a 6th-year Jim Cott is difficult in a slab because there's not a lot of them graded, because nobody thought, why would I grade a Jim Cott 79 tops, know? And I want that card, and now I'm having a hard time finding it. Now it's really becoming easy for me to decide, buy raw and grade myself. That's become a super easy decision, by the way.
Is there a way to check? We have a Hall of Fame tracker by Mr. Tibbs. Is there a way, is anybody have the ability to scrape the data on the pops as players approach and are elected to the Hall of Fame? People like Cott and Oliva that have been around for a very long time. And then McGriff too. It'd be interesting to see McGriff as well. But that's I think that's a pretty
good
interesting
barometer.
an indicator of what really is happening in there, and why is that, right? So that'd be neat to see if you can see the movement.
I'm sure you would see movement if you actually could. That'd be a fascinating thing to track. Think about Billy Wagner, Joe Mauer. Let's take those two guys who are, Wagner's on his last ballot, will likely get in this year. It's looking like Todd Helton, even. They were a part of the junk wax era and beyond. So their cards are not only incredibly prevalent, but incredibly worthless, really, by and large, by themselves. A Billy Wagner 1994 Bowman card, which is what they use for the future Hall of Fame set registry, which is the card I'm going at. I want to go after that. Like, I could choose from all these there's several choices for Billy Wagner auto or rookie cards. I want that one because it's on the registry, because I don't really care which one I own, honestly. Is it the Bowman's Best? Is it?
But that makes no sense to me, man. That's like ordering a glass of water as the Titanic's going down. Is that not going to be taken off the future Hall of Fame set registry if he makes the Hall of Fame?
It'll move to the
Oh, they
Yes.
moved that card over. Okay.
Yeah.
I
So
got
that
you.
becomes part of the post-war Hall of Fame rookie
Right,
checklist, that
right.
card. Now, why did
Okay.
we can get into a whole debate of why they would choose that particular card? Ichiro and Pujols have a very expensive serial numbered rookie card as that
Mhm.
card represented in that set, which makes zero sense to me. They have why wouldn't you just use their base tops card or whatever?
Yeah.
You
Yeah,
know,
exactly. Yeah, right.
there's a whole lot of reasons why we could get into that, but I I collect a lot of pool. I have several different pools rookies that I like that I think are cool. As an example, I buy them not because that's part of a registry. I buy them because I like them, and I thought Pujols was an amazing player, right?
So
So
let's
go
let's
ahead.
let's let's throw a little TV time out here. You talk your final words or your last words were Pujols was an amazing player. Did we at any time think that Billy Wagner, and I know I always preach body of work for players to be recognized, but were we breathless at Billy Wagner? Like, wow, look at this future Hall of Famer, as you were with a guy like Rivera, right? Mariano Rivera. We kind of knew his greatness as it was going along,
Yeah,
and we knew Pujols the same thing. We didn't necessarily know that about McGriff. I know they're sort of different eras, McGriff and Pujols, but to me, that's what Hall of Famers are. You kind of recognize that about 5 years into their career, like we're watching greatness. Do we ever think that with Wagner and some of the other folks that are on there, like we did with Mariano Rivera? So that's why Pujols and Cabrera actually get, I think, less hype than they should for players of their skills and less love in the card game. You talk about a Pujols and a Ichiro rookie together. That tickles a lot of people, and that gets a lot of people going. But their individual cards don't, for some reason, from their rookie years.
what about a guy like Todd Helton? Right, I never watched Todd Helton thinking future Hall of Famer,
Mhm.
and I watched his entire career. Uh,
We watched a lot of guys though that are on that ballot this year, right? A-Rod
yeah,
automatically thought that before he went to Texas, obviously, and obviously before he went to New York.
yeah,
Manny Ramirez, kind of the same thing. Before he left Cleveland, we thought this guy is something special.
yeah.
So I just don't, I don't see a guy like Billy Wagner. We're just recognizing now that he's on the cusp of the Hall of Fame. I know he's been on the ballot for 10 years, and there's no doubt he's a great pitcher, but, you know, we can't expect his value to jump up that much. I think everybody, all the all the preppers, the Billy Wagner preppers have already gathered their stuff and in their underground bunkers, and I don't think we're going to see that much more. We're going to see, if anything, we're going to see more Billy Wagner cards, which would drop the values of all that stuff.
Right. Beltre is in terms of new guys to the ballot. I think Beltre is the only guy that is an absolute. I watched him every day, 100% Hall of Famer.
Right.
Was an amazing player, and I thought that while he played.
Right.
And I didn't think that prior to him coming to the Rangers, but it's only because I didn't see a lot of him. He was a Dodger, and he was a Mariner for a while, but I just, that was a time when I wasn't watching as much baseball. But then when he got here, I got to see his greatness in full display. And man, I'm telling you, every day it was, yep, love this guy. Absolutely
Yeah.
love this.
You didn't see that from Billy Wagner.
No,
So, I mean, with that said, even though you say that about Beltre, where do you see his cards going? He's not even there aren't even a lot of people gathering up his cards now in anticipation. He's just not a sexy player. And I guess the point you've made is that, is it relevant, the Hall of Fame relevant to the hobby? And I don't, I think we both agree that perhaps it is not.
I think it's lost its significance based on the players being inducted, not the Hall of Fame's fault or the hobby's fault. It's if you had the right guys, if you had these, transformational, generational type talent players. But again, they already have a hobby presence. Ichiro has one. Pujols has one. the Hall of Fame's not gonna change that very much. Other than
Is it the
look,
writer? We speak of the Hall of Fame, but is it do we? I think we value the opinions of baseball writers too much, right? And baseball writers are a throwback to when you would read about players in foreign cities that you could never see and stuff like that. Now we can see everybody can check with their own eyes to see who passes the eye test, what players pass the eye test, and too much weight is put into the opinions of a bunch of, for the most part, people that aren't as educated about the sport as they used to be. I would think, but
let me
I
ask.
don't want to offend all writers, but it seems like there's a lot of people, there's a lot of me first people
Yeah.
judging me first players.
Well, let me ask you about two guys that you could speak on better than me, Utley and Rollins, right?
I can tell you, you can put a gun to my head. I'll tell you all day long, Jimmy Rollins before Utley all day long.
Yeah.
All day long. But Utley is the sexy pick this year for some reason.
And I would choose Rollins over Utley any day of the week, twice on Sunday, in terms of Hall of Fame candidacy.
Yep.
I don't think either one of them are Hall of Fame deserving.
I think Rollins is he's one of those guys that will, like I used to call it, the foyer of fame. He's one of those guys that's going to be perpetually parked in the foyer just outside the hall. And you and I could rattle off 5 to 10 of them right now. The Dave Parkers, the Al Olivers, Tommy Johns. I just
Dick
had
Allen.
this discussion. Dick Allen. We can rattle them off all day long. And Rollins is good enough, I think, to be in the front door, but not all the way in, 2,500 hits, MVP, all that stuff. So I think he's in.
Go ahead. Finish up, Rollins.
No, I think I think he, I watched him play enough during those glory years, the late aughts, to know that, Utley was good, but Jimmy Rollins put up a lot more numbers. Shortstop, 30 home runs, scored 139 runs, scored a lot of runs. So I'm a big Jimmy Rollins fan. He could do it enough with the glove, all that fun stuff. Utley, supremely talented, but J-Roll will be one of those guys, I think, foyer of fame guy.
I think it's funny, and this is what the Hall of Fame does. Anytime you discuss it, we said at the very beginning, we're not going to debate players deserving to be in or not. And here we gravitate quickly towards discussing who should get in and who shouldn't. And I think if we go back to more generalizations, I think the Hall of Fame, through the processes that exist, has watered down to where it's become less important in the hobby. Once Harold Baines got in, we'll let everybody in, right? And
that's a good point. But you know what, though? That's not, I mean, Harold Baines is a poster child for a bigger problem. He's a symptom of a bigger problem. And it's not a problem. It's just the way things are. There were so many cards in the 80s and the 90s. Beginning in 1981, Harold Baines' rookie card, right? You 3x the amount of manufacturers right off the bat. And then even those manufacturers watered down their own sets by putting out the update sets. So, we can debate Baines per se, but that I think the bigger poster child or poster children for those are the people like Winfield and Yount and Molitor and all those guys whose cards suddenly, the amount of cards they had was 20 times what they had before, if not even more at some point. So hobby love for Hall of Famers may have started to die off right there in 1981. We know what 1980 and earlier was, but 1981, Michael Schmidt, great cards in the 70s. And then, you can buy Mike Schmidt cards from the 80s, for pennies at a time. So I think the hobby kind of broke off the engagement with Hall of Famers right around that point.
So you could correlate the dilution of the significance of the Hall of Fame induction with the dilution of the card market.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's natural, right? There's,
Right.
you're still talking about in early 2024, trying to pick up Tommy John cards, right? Or not Tommy John, Jim Cott cards or Leva cards. Like, you know, you don't have any problem picking up a Harold Baines card, and Harold, say what you want about Harold Baines. Is he any more or less deserving than Oliva or Jim Cott? I don't know, but like, it's a lot easier to pick up a 6-year Harold Baines card, not just because of the time span, but because of the amount of cards and the way things were collected in the 80s versus the 60s. So I think that that had, there's at least 2 generations at this point that are programmed, uh, have been programmed not to connect the Hall of Fame, whether it's overtly or covertly. They've been programmed to not connect the Hall of Fame to cards and card value.
Interesting. Versus
Greg Maddux, right? Think of can you think of there's a lot of great pitchers, obviously, in the 80s and 90s. Maddux, Clemens, all that stuff. But Greg Maddux is one of the greatest pitchers of all time, right?
and completely hobby irrelevant.
Hobby irrelevant. Tom and his teammate. He's not even, and
Right.
then he's got a teammate who's pretty darn good too, Tom Glavine, and another one, Smoltz, who's still out there. His face is out there all the time, Smoltz, and nobody cares about John Smoltz cards. The only person I see right now, pitcher wise, seems to be Kershaw, other than Ohtani. People still buy Kershaw cards, but I don't know whether his Hall of Fame, his threat of, and he will be in the Hall of Fame. I don't know whether his impending Hall of Fame status will make those cards go up in value, or it's just they're already there. You just got to pick them off the tree. The tree's
Yeah.
not growing anymore.
There's always the Hall of Fame bump, but it's usually a 20 to 40% bump, and it's very temporary.
In what are you talking about? Slab rookies?
Yes.
Okay.
Which is really the only measurable thing that's consistent, right?
I got you. But again, I don't know the numbers, but like it's people just as smart as you that are, meaning the dealers, that are also, getting ready for that whole thing, and they're gathering cards and submitting cards and all that stuff. And it would be neat to see that if PSA could ever, especially with, the fact that they are behind the Hall of Fame set registry, and what's the other one you said? The
You have a
pre-Hall of
future
Fame?
Hall of Fame
Future
set
Hall of
record,
Fame. Yeah, it'd be
and then you
neat to
got
see
a
that. Be neat
post-war
to see
rookie.
that information. Wonder what it would harm for us to see that information, right? Talk to your boy over there, your new BFF.
Hey, don't be making fun of Nat Turner.
Hey, by the way, kudos to Nat Turner. I did not participate in any of the PSA shenanigans, but I thought he was a lot more open and candid, and unscripted and unrehearsed than most people in his position, and that was appreciated.
Yeah, we talked for another hour and a half after the interview. He was just a dude. He was just we were just talking cards, and so he was pretty great, and he didn't have to be that way. He didn't have to talk to me at all. I'm just a schmo from Texas. So,
but we like data. We're collectors. We like data. We've liked data from the first time we picked up a card, which is why we flipped them over back in the day. Be nice to see that data, because it would be it'd be fun to see that for sure.
So let's take a guy. Who would you say recently would be a good sample of someone you'd like to see? I think the pop reports would be fascinating, and are more cards of this player, whether rookie card or not, being submitted.
Who's getting in next year? Is Ichiro in next year? We lost your microphone. You might want to unmute that, Mike.
There you go. Better.
There you go. Yeah. So is Ichiro getting in next year?
He is.
All right. So I wonder what the movement on that's going to be, the build up on that, right?
Well, the problem is he has like 18 rookie cards.
Well, which one's in the registry?
The SP Authentic, which is
that's the one to watch then, right?
1200 or 1800 or whatever it is, 1900, something like that.
And we're talking about what, 8, 9, 10s, right? Or 9, 10s?
Yeah, it's expensive now.
Right.
So it will certainly go up. I was going to look at VCP, and I was going to look at a guy like Jim Cott or Tony Oliva and look at what their rookie card did during.
Well, I mean, it seemed like it'd be it would have to be afterwards, because it seemed like it would have been a plateau. Or do you think that it seemed like they would have plateaued at a certain point, because they were not even elected, right? Or they were chosen via the Veterans Committee or something. So you can't really clock that in real time or anticipate that stuff, other than it's just the year. I'm sure people are done submitting Dick Allen 1964 Dick Allen cards, right? Because he's had that moment so many times where they've tried to get him in.
What about us now? This is fascinating. I'm going to share my screen here. Actually, I do love investigating this stuff. And so here's the Jim Cott rookie 1960 tops. I'm looking at a PSA 7, and I'm going back. He was elected in 2021, I believe. Does that sound right?
Yeah.
So if I pull up here to 2021, here's when the hype begins for him, and he gets elected here in January. Up here,
right?
So the pre hype. This is a 7. It was a $90 card in October. And this is, again, post crazy COVID, right? So you can attribute probably most of, if not all of this movement to Hall of Fame stuff.
Yeah.
So by December.
Move back a little bit there. Keep going. Keep going.
2021.
Right there. What's that? 195?
February 2021.
At 195, right?
Yeah.
So it's not that far off if you go right now. It's not that far. It's a little bit below what it is right now, right? Is that really say 280? 250? Okay. Gotcha.
So yes, you see this hype pre-induction. He gets inducted, it keeps kind of going, and then it settles back down, but higher than this level, right? For the most part, by and large.
Right, for sure. Yeah, you're right. Now, what about somebody more contemporary that has more cards? Will that show up on VCP?
Yeah. Who are we thinking?
Show the McGriffs.
Okay, so that's 86 Donruss. Let's see if there it is.
Just get the feeling that there's millions of more of these cards than there are of the 60 cots. So yeah.
He was elected in a year ago?
No, was he? I guess he was, yeah.
So his hype would have started in, November of 2022. Actually, is that right? When was McGriff? We need to know because it's important, obviously.
Right. Let's look. One of your dogs knows.
Yeah, they do.
2023 he was inducted, so it was a year ago. January 2023.
It would have been,
January of 2023.
So it would have been December-ish 2022. So back in this time frame, October, November, he gets on, they announce the ballot. You see you go from $50 to $100, right? $80. This is on a PSA 9, a junk waxed card. So $100 into December, it gets up to $160. But it's.
Does it tell you how many sales that is?
Well, it'll show you down here all the sales.
Because if you go back up to the graph, there's that spike at the end. I can't read that well. Is that the induction ceremony?
Yeah. Well, it's August 2023, 157.
Yeah. So that's post, the induction ceremony is in July. So the data.
Yeah. This is definitely, it's a $40 card average price. So,
right.
And even now, most recently, 46 or, 34, 42, 64. Somebody bought it now for 64. So
how does that make you feel if you do that? We as consumers know that it's going to drop. And what the heck's going on in that other spike? But we as consumers know it's going to drop back down. Why do we need it now?
You
Why
don't.
do we
I'm
need it
not
now?
chasing the Wagner right now. I'm not chasing
Right.
the Mauer. I'm going to wait because there's two things. Number one, it's dumb to buy any of that stuff now because you're seeing an increase in prices. Number two, we're not sure. They look like they're tracking well. Wagner may not get in.
Mhm.
The huge funny thing is when you see what's reported publicly through Mr. Tibbs and then what ends up being reality is usually quite significant in terms of percentage change. And so
Right.
I don't want to. I'd rather buy it in. I don't care when I get it. It can be 3 years from now. I don't have a David Ortiz rookie yet. He got in however many years ago.
That's what was his name? Arias, David Arias, right?
David Arias, yes.
Arias, whatever you want to call him.
I don't have his rookie card yet, and
So why not make? I think I'm conflicted. I think the voting should not be trickled out, but I do think that every ballot should be made public because the trickling out of votes, we kind of have that problem with our general elections in the country
right.
about calling states and calling precincts before everybody else has had to vote. I think that it makes more sense just to release we don't hear about this in football and all the other sports. I know it's not as popular, the Hall of Fame, but all the ballots should be released publicly and they should all be released at once. No offense to Mr. Tibbs, but it just makes the most sense. If
Well,
these
all the
people
ballots
were
have.
accountable.
I would agree with you up to the point of when ballots are supposed to be returned, which is December 31st, I believe. And so all the stuff that was coming out in early and mid December that can influence
Yes. Right.
potentially the person who hasn't filled out their ballot. I think after the ballots have to be returned, which is again whatever deadline that is, if it's December 31st, starting January 1, if I'm a writer and I want to publicly release my ballot,
You can do that. Yeah, for
I
sure.
should be able to do that. I have a problem with them doing it prior to
Yeah.
the deadline.
And the sad part about that is that I don't trust the writers or the voters to not be influenced by somebody else. I mean, your opinion should be your opinion and you should stick by it. If you're being influenced by somebody else, and I don't trust any of these voters to not I shouldn't say any. I don't trust some of these voters not to be influenced by somebody. And again, that's a big black mark on the whole process. So
Yeah.
they need to baseball is becoming more and more irrelevant in our nation's vision, and certainly the Hall of Fame is as well because, and it isn't Harold Baines' fault, but it just there's a lot of good players. There's a lot of great players. There aren't any ones I guess there aren't any ones that stand out as much as there used to be.
Yeah.
Which is so it's a shame, but that's where we're headed. And of course, the artificial market that it creates in the hobby, I mean, that benefits dealers, that benefits PSA and the graders and SGC, and good for them, but doesn't really benefit the collectors that much, right?
No, we spend more money on cards
That will go down in value.
that we otherwise might not have bought. Now, I try to be anticipatory, right? I try to be with foresight of, especially if it's really vintage stuff. Like all the guys, I was buying Lou Piniella rookies and
Yeah.
Dick Allen. I don't have a rookie, but I'm still looking for one of those. I'd love to have one of those just in case. I have Dave Parker. I have guys that might get in down the road. I bought them while they're cheap, and even pre-COVID, so way cheap. And so it's kind of I like to prospect for those guys. I don't want to buy the latest and greatest Andrew Jones or Drew Jones rookie card out of Bowman, but I will prospect for Hall of Famers, and that's a fun thing to do.
I've
Actually,
got a big announcement.
yeah, go ahead.
Sorry for springing it so late into the show. I'm announcing a slab leasing program where you can lease a Hall of Famer to put into your registry, and then terms are probably about 12 months. It'll be cheaper than buying, and there's the potential to rent to own later down the road, but you can rent a slab from me for whatever registry you want, and no money down, just simple monthly payments, and then when the market dips, you can just cut bait, and I get the card back. Yeah, what do you think?
If you have a Dick Allen rookie, I'm all for it.
Okay, I do. This is the first to market right here. This one right here, this Sandy Koufax. So
See, you got a package from JT. That's fantastic.
this is my prototype. There are no marks on the back. It's got a clean back. So anyway, that's going to be my. There's people that have made dumber money in this hobby than I have. So that's my thing. So at me if you guys want to release a Hall of Fame rookie until all the hype dies down.
Love it.
I'm your guy.
All right, man. Let's wrap this show up. Thanks, John, for the discussion. Would love to hear what you guys think down below. Leave comments. We will probably not answer them, but go ahead and leave them anyway. And no, just kidding. We'd love to hear from you, what you think. And we'll talk to you guys next week on a new episode of Hobby Think Tank. Take care and keep collecting.